You slept 8 hours last night, a full 8 hours, and yet you are sitting here right now reading this because something inside you already knows that the sleep did not work. You woke up and the exhaustion was still there, waiting for you like an unwanted guest who never left. So you did what you always do. You made the coffee, maybe 2 cups before 9 a.m., maybe three. And by 2:30 inches the afternoon, that familiar concrete wall came down on your skull, that brutal bone-deep crash that no amount of willpower can push through, and you found yourself staring at the clock, counting the hours until you could reasonably call it a day. And in those quiet moments, the fear starts to creep in. Not the kind of fear you talk about, but the kind you feel in your chest when you realize you could not keep up on that last family hike. When you had to sit down in the garden after 20 minutes because your legs simply had nothing left. When your grandchildren wanted to run and you wanted to join them, but your body had already submitted a resignation letter that nobody asked it to file. That fear is not weakness. That is biology. And what nobody, not your doctor, not the supplement aisle, not the billion-dollar energy drink industry, has ever bothered to tell you is that your fatigue has almost nothing to do with how much you sleep or how much coffee you consume. It has everything to do with something happening inside your cells right now, something that has been quietly accelerating since you turned 50, and something that caffeine does not fix. It makes catastrophically worse. I need you to stay with me, because what I am about to walk you through will permanently change how you understand your own energy, your own body, and your own future. There are two things I need you to hold on to as we go. First, the actual biological reason your body cannot generate real energy anymore, and it is not what you think it is. Second, the specific molecular strategy, documented in peer-reviewed science, that physically repairs the mechanism responsible for your exhaustion, not masks it, not stimulates around it, repairs it. So let us go deep into the biology, because once you understand what is actually happening inside your cells, you will never look at that afternoon cup of coffee the same way again. Inside every single cell in your body, there are tiny structures called mitochondria. You may have heard them called the powerhouse of the cell in some biology class decades ago, and that description, while simplified, is accurate. Mitochondria are the only structures in the human body capable of taking the food you eat and converting it into adenosine triphosphate, which is the actual biological currency your body runs on. Every heartbeat, every breath, every thought, every step you take requires ATP. Not calories, not glucose in some abstract sense. ATP specifically produced inside these microscopic engines. And here is what nobody is putting on a morning talk show segment. After the age of 50, your mitochondria begin to physically decay, not metaphorically, not as a vague concept. They physically deteriorate at a measurable, documentable, cellular level. Imagine your car's engine. Now imagine that over 20 years, the spark plugs inside that engine have accumulated rust, carbon buildup, and corrosion so severe that they can no longer ignite the fuel efficiently. The tank is full. The fuel pump is working. You have everything you need to generate power, except the component that actually starts the combustion process has degraded beyond its functional threshold. So what happens? The engine sputters, it misfires, it burns fuel incompletely. And instead of generating clean mechanical power, it produces excessive exhaust, smoke, and toxic byproducts that further corrode the engine from the inside. That is precisely what is happening inside your body right now. The food you eat is the fuel. Your mitochondria are the engines. And the rusted spark plugs are a molecule called coenzyme Q10, or CoQ10, which your body produces in abundance when you are young, but which declines precipitously after age 40, dropping by as much as 65% by the time you reach 65, according to data published in the journal Mitochondrion. Without sufficient CoQ10, the mitochondria cannot complete the electron transport chain, which is the specific biochemical sequence that generates ATP. So, instead of clean energy production, you get mitochondrial misfiring. Instead of ATP, you get an explosion of reactive oxygen species, which are the biological equivalent of that toxic exhaust. These free radicals then attack the mitochondrial membrane itself, causing structural damage that compounds over time, creating a degenerative cycle where damaged mitochondria produce more free radicals, which damage more mitochondria, which produce even less ATP, which leaves you waking up from 8 hours of sleep feeling like you have not slept at all. And here is the first thing I need you to sit with because it is going to make everything that follows make complete sense. Your fatigue is not an energy input problem. You are consuming enough food. Your fatigue is an energy conversion problem. Your cellular engines are rusted, and absolutely nothing in mainstream health culture is addressing the rust. Now let us talk about what mainstream culture is telling you to do instead, because this is where the real damage is being done. And I want to give you the specific numbers so you can see exactly how badly this advice has failed you. Caffeine, the global solution to fatigue. The molecule in coffee, tea, and every artificially colored can of so-called energy drink on the market. Here is the clinical reality of what caffeine actually does in your body. Caffeine does not create energy. It does not synthesize a single molecule of ATP. What it does is block adenosine receptors in your brain. Adenosine is a chemical that accumulates throughout your waking hours and progressively signals to your brain that you are getting tired, that it is time to rest and recover. Caffeine temporarily occupies the receptor sites where adenosine would normally bind, which creates the sensation that the fatigue signal has disappeared. But the adenosine is still there, still accumulating, still waiting. The moment the caffeine clears your system, all of that accumulated adenosine floods the receptors simultaneously, which is why the crash after caffeine is always proportionally worse than the tiredness you felt before you took it. But here is the part that the coffee industry has no interest in you understanding. Research published in the American Journal of Physiology has demonstrated that high caffeine consumption actively depletes cellular ATP reserves. The stimulant effect forces your sympathetic nervous system into a state of artificial alertness, which demands ATP expenditure from your cells at an accelerated rate, drawing down your already limited mitochondrial energy output by an estimated 25 to 30% per cycle of stimulation and crash. So every morning you drink coffee to compensate for your exhaustion, you are spending energy reserves your cells cannot afford to spend, guaranteeing that tomorrow's exhaustion will be more severe than today's. And over months and years, this repeated forced depletion accelerates the very mitochondrial decay that caused your fatigue in the first place. Then there are the B vitamin energy supplements, the bottles with lightning bolts on the label, the B12 drops and the B complex capsules marketed directly at adults over 50 with the promise of restored vitality. And yes, B vitamins are involved in mitochondrial function. That part is true. But here is what those labels do not tell you. B vitamins are cofactors in the energy production process. They are the support crew, not the machinery. Without functional mitochondrial infrastructure, supplementing B vitamins is like hiring a cleaning crew for an engine that is not running. You can flood the system with cofactors all day long, and if the primary electron transporter, the CoQ10 in its biologically active form, is absent or insufficient, ATP synthesis does not occur at the rate your body requires. You have been spending money on solutions designed around the right general problem and the completely wrong biological target. Now let us look at what the science actually supports, because this is where the evidence becomes dense and specific enough that I want you to pay close attention to every detail. The solution to mitochondrial decay is not stimulation, it is repair. Specifically, it is the delivery of the precise molecular components required to restore the electron transport chain and, critically, to stimulate the creation of entirely new mitochondria inside your cells. And that process requires two specific compounds working in precise biological concert. The first is ubiquinol, not standard CoQ10, ubiquinol specifically. Here is the molecular distinction that the supplement industry glosses over because the cheaper form is far more profitable to manufacture. Standard CoQ10 is ubiquinone, the fully oxidized form. When you swallow a standard CoQ10 capsule, your body must first convert ubiquinone into ubiquinol before it can be used in the electron transport chain. In younger bodies, that conversion happens efficiently, But research published in the journal Biofactors has confirmed that after age 40, the enzymatic conversion capacity declines dramatically, meaning the standard CoQ10 supplement you might have tried before largely passes through your system without ever reaching its functional form inside the mitochondria. Ubiquinol is the pre-reduced, bioavailable form. It is the literal electron carrier molecule that physically accepts and donates electrons within the mitochondrial inner membrane, completing the chain that synthesizes ATP. Clinical trials at the University of Kiel in Germany demonstrated that ubiquinol supplementation increased plasma CoQ10 levels by a factor of nearly 4.5 compared to standard ubiquinone in adults over 50. That is not a marginal improvement. That is a categorical biological difference. But even ubiquinol faces a critical delivery challenge, and this is where the second compound becomes essential. The mitochondrial membrane is one of the most selectively impermeable structures in human biology. It is specifically designed to control what enters and exits the mitochondria, which is necessary for its function, but which also creates a barrier problem when you are trying to therapeutically restore CoQ10 levels inside the organelle. This is where Shilajit resin, and specifically the fulvic acid it contains, becomes the mechanism that makes this entire strategy work at a clinical level. Shilajit is a tar-like resin exuded from high-altitude Himalayan and Altai mountain rock formations over millennia. The compressed biological residue of ancient plant matter transformed over geological time into an extraordinarily dense matrix of bioactive compounds. Its primary therapeutic molecule is fulvic acid, and what fulvic acid does at the cellular level is extraordinary. It functions as a biological shuttle, a molecular transporter with a unique ability to complex with other molecules and carry them across cell membranes that would otherwise reject them. A landmark study published in the Journal of the International Society of Sports Nutrition found that Shilajit supplementation significantly enhanced the bioavailability and mitochondrial uptake of CoQ10 by using this fulvic acid transport mechanism. Specifically, fulvic acid was shown to facilitate the delivery of ubiquinol directly through the mitochondrial inner membrane, the precise barrier that normally limits CoQ10's therapeutic reach, resulting in measurable improvements in mitochondrial electron transport efficiency and ATP output. The researchers also documented a meaningful reduction in markers of mitochondrial oxidative stress, meaning the fulvic acid delivery system was not only getting ubiquinol into the mitochondria, but actively reducing the free radical damage responsible for the degenerative cycle of mitochondrial decay. But the third component of this protocol is the one that elevates it from mitochondrial maintenance to mitochondrial regeneration. PQQ, or pyrroloquinoline quinone, is a molecule so important to cellular energy that researchers at the University of California, Davis, including Dr. Robert Rucker, dedicated years of study to understanding its unique biological function. What PQQ does that neither ubiquinol nor fulvic acid can do alone is activate a specific genetic pathway known as mitochondrial biogenesis. This is the process by which your body grows entirely new mitochondria from scratch inside existing cells. The primary regulator of mitochondrial biogenesis is a protein called PGC1 alpha, and PQQ has been demonstrated in peer-reviewed research to directly stimulate PGC1 alpha expression, triggering the cellular machinery that manufactures new mitochondrial structures. In practical terms, this means that ubiquinol and Shilajit restore and optimize your existing mitochondria, while PQQ simultaneously signals your body to build additional mitochondria, expanding the total cellular energy generating capacity of your body over time. You are not just repairing the engines that exist. You are adding new engines to the fleet. Now here is exactly what you need to do, and I am going to be precise because the timing and the synergy between these compounds matters as much as the compounds themselves. Every morning, within 30 minutes of waking, before caffeine and before food, you are going to take 100 milligrams of ubiquinol, the reduced form, not standard CoQ10. Simultaneously, you will take 250 milligrams of purified Shilajit resin, standardized to a minimum of 60% fulvic acid content. This can be found in resin form or in encapsulated supplements specifying fulvic acid concentration. Third, you will take 20 milligrams of PQQ. This specific dosage was established in clinical trials as the threshold required to meaningfully activate PGC 1 alpha signaling in adult subjects. And critically, you must consume all three of these compounds alongside a small source of dietary fat. A single tablespoon of coconut oil, a few slices of avocado, or a small handful of walnuts. Ubiquinol is a fat-soluble molecule, meaning it requires dietary fat to be properly absorbed through the intestinal wall. Without this cofactor, you can take the finest ubiquinol on the market and your absorption rate will be a fraction of its potential. The fat is not optional, it is mechanistically essential. By taking this matrix in the morning, you are aligning the protocol with your natural cortisol and metabolic peak, which is when your cells are most primed for energy production and mitochondrial activity. You are delivering the electron transport molecule in its pre-reduced, immediately bioavailable form. You are using fulvic acid as the delivery vehicle to move that molecule through the mitochondrial membrane where it is needed. And you are simultaneously triggering the biogenesis signal that will, over days and weeks, expand your total mitochondrial density. After implementing this morning protocol, you will cut all caffeine intake off at 10 a.m., not as a permanent life change, but as a 10-day diagnostic. I am issuing you a structured challenge right now. For the next 10 days, you will implement the morning Ubiquinol, Shilajit, and PQQ protocol with your dietary fat. You will cease all caffeine after 10 a.m. And at exactly 3 p.m. each day, you will mentally assess your energy, your mental clarity, and your physical stamina compared to how you have felt at that same hour for the past several months. On day 1, that 3 p.m. window will likely still feel familiar. On day 3 or day 4, you will notice something is different. The wall is not as thick. On day 7, many people report that the wall has stopped showing up. And on day 10, I want you to come back and leave a comment with a single word describing how 3 p.m. felt compared to when you started. Because that single data point, your own biological response, is more credible than anything I can tell you. Share this with someone over 50 who is still blaming aging for their exhaustion. They deserve to know that the exhaustion is not who they are. It is a correctable cellular failure that mainstream medicine has never bothered to address because there is no prescription required and no repeat purchase model attached to mitochondrial repair. And before you go, I need you to stay subscribed because the next video is going to expose something that even most functional medicine practitioners have missed. We are going to talk about a specific morning light exposure protocol that, when combined with cold thermal exposure, activates a gene expression pathway called FOXO3, the same longevity pathway found to be hyperactive in the cells of every documented human being who has lived past 110 years. And I am going to show you how to trigger it without any supplements, any equipment, and in less than 12 minutes every morning. You do not want to miss that.